It is a great pleasure for me to address you on behalf of UNESCO Intergovernmental Hydrological Program at the opening ceremony of the 22nd Congress Brasileiro de Águas Subterrâneas that has central topics Águas Subterrâneas, Invisible, Indivisible, e Indispensable. I take this opportunity to evoke the excellence of many outstanding Brazilian hydrogeologists. I wish also to thank the organizing and the scientific committee for making this Congress a contribution to the UN Water 2022 campaign on groundwater, making the invisible visible, that address groundwater's vital role for the life of people and ecosystems. The UN Water campaign is devoted to the large public, and its overarching message is that exploring, protecting, and sustainably using groundwater will be central to surviving and adapting to climate change and meeting the needs of growing population. We can firmly assert that ensuring availability and sustainable management of groundwater resources is a necessity if we are to realize access to water for all and to achieve Agenda 2030 and the associated Sustainable Development Goals. 53 of the Sustainable Development Goals are 169 targets have a link to groundwater. For instance, SDG Target 2.4 on sustainable food production system and resilient agriculture practices relies on the availability of groundwater. Good groundwater management is also needed to achieve the SDG Target 6.6, to protect and restore water-related ecosystem, and the SDG 6 Target 15.1 on the conservation of freshwater ecosystem, and their services also depend on groundwater. The indicator SIS52, last but not least, measures progress about transboundary surface water and aquifer system and give us important information about aquifer shared by more than 2 countries. The challenge we face is unprecedented and growing. With less than 10 years to go to achieve the SDGs, we need an integrated global response to rapidly improve progress. Therefore, the UN Secretary General, Mr. Gutierrez, has launched the SDG 6 Global Acceleration Framework, a new unifying initiative to speed up progress by improving support to countries. One of the 5 drivers of this acceleration framework is tackling accelerate improvement in capacity development. As you know, water education and capacity development is one of the main mandates of UNESCO. The results of the monitoring of the indicators of the SDG 6 show that we are out of track in water education and in particular in groundwater resources capacity in many countries. Investments are needed in groundwater capacity to succeed to create inclusive human and institutional capacities so that to enable the establishment of a skilled workforce, improved service, operating and maintenance technology, increased job creation. Let me say that the objectives of this Congress have been competently selected with the vision of creating a forum dedicated to addressing the current and future challenges of management of groundwater, with so many topics highlighted during these 4 days, including isotopes techniques, coastal aquifers, groundwater and mining, but also law and regulation of groundwater. Ladies and gentlemen, UNESCO believes that there are good signals for advancing on the right direction and then prepare together the future we want. The monitoring of the SDG 6 indicator has succeeded in collecting data and figures that allow us today to be more assertive to better define existing gaps and needs. I wish to highlight that most of the world's large aquifers cross international borders. More than 600 transboundary aquifers have been identified worldwide. Hence, we can assert that the vast majority of countries share groundwater resources. If in the last 20 years substantial progress has been made in the baseline assessment of transboundary aquifers, however, examples of structural and formalized cooperation among aquifer sharing countries are still rare. Among more than 200 analyzed agreements on international shared rivers and lakes, only a few of them include specific provision on groundwater. Moreover, it is to be highlighted that there are only 7 cooperation agreements fully devoted to the management and use of transboundary aquifers. The hydrogeologists know, we really know, the complexity of aquifer system that needs specific attention. It is more difficult to let policymakers and politicians appreciate the need to configure specific governance and related legal and institutional provisions for aquifers and groundwater resources. For instance, the action that UNESCO and UNEC are implementing with 153 countries are responsible UN agencies that we are for the monitoring of the SDG 6, the indicator that measures progress towards water cooperation, has produced the collection of a large amount of data that allow us to highlight 3 key issues. 1, that is needed to accelerate cooperation between countries in several regions. 2, that is necessary to invest more heavily in developing knowledge and capacity. 3, that it is crucial to translate this knowledge into concrete policy proposals and options for a sustainable water resource management. We have collected data that demonstrate that groundwater resources in many countries are poorly assessed, used, and governed, and that their potential is not adequately considered. Therefore, UNESCO and the UN system during the 22 UN campaign are raising the attention of countries to the need to pay more care and improve investment in groundwater resource assessment, monitoring, and governance. Ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, in conclusion, let me assure you that UNESCO objective is to create a world where citizens can all live in dignity and peace, in an hospitable environment that they have learned to care for. As you may know, the UNESCO member states have agreed to adopt the open access to science approach. Without data sharing and open access to data and scientific knowledge, there is neither water security nor stability. Let me state that UNESCO Intergovernmental Hydrological Program is extremely appreciative to be able to count with the partnership and support of the Associação Brasileira de Águas Subterrâneas to achieve this objective. And certainly, the contribution of many of you in your professional and personal endeavor to use groundwater resource sustainably. UNESCO is leading the UN World Water Day campaign and will host at its headquarters in Paris, the 7 and 8 December this year, the UN Water Summit on groundwater. And you are all invited. We need to make groundwater visible, especially for politicians and policymakers. Despite its important role, groundwater is out of sight and often out of mind. UNESCO is also pleased to be able to contribute to the process towards the preparation of the second Intergovernmental UN Conference on Water that will be organized at the UN in New York in March 2023. I wish this Congress would send clear messages to the conference, to member states. We really need to do our best to be sure that groundwater will be considered in the debate of this conference. The first UN conference on water was organized in Mar del Plata in 1977, very far away. The first and the second have a difference of 45 years. The second is taking place only next year. It is crucial to call to governments and international community to increase knowledge and investment on sustainable use and management of groundwater. Ladies and gentlemen, and dear colleague, hydrogeologists, Since its inception in the late 70s, UNESCO Intergovernmental Hydrological Program has actively worked to support member states in improving their capacity in groundwater studies, management, and governance. We have to continue to work together to raise our voice and pledge for including groundwater resources high in the political agenda. I thank you and I wish you a very successful Congress.